Hey everyone, welcome back for the third video in my primitive tattooing series. If this is your first time to the channel, or this playlist, you might want to check out the first two videos and subscribe to see future ones. As you probably noticed in the thumbnail and title, today I'm replicating a tattoo present on the Iceman known as Otzi. His mummy was found after being frozen in the Alps for 5,300 years, and currently bears the oldest examples of tattoos on a human body. In addition to adding Otzi's double wristline adornment, I'll be filling bare spots from my previous sessions today. As you watch me work, you'll notice I tend to start with the needle more upright, and as I increase pressure, I bring the length of the needle closer to the skin. I found this useful for a couple of reasons. For one thing, it means that your ink is dispersed over a greater area when the needle sinks into the skin. This helps dots that are next to each other overlap, thereby leaving fewer gaps in your work. It also helps stretch the skin a bit more, and then the needle penetrates that much easier. When I start working on a tattoo, I like to draw it on with a Sharpie or a pen, as you saw, and then create dotted lines over the design. It's helpful because as you wipe away the ink residue and fluid, those lines will wipe away too. But if you've dotted in your lines by needle, you have something more permanent to follow. Check out my little friend running around on my knee. Whoa! Take it easy, man. This isn't an open bar. Now you get a nice pee stain. Anyways, I like adding my vodka to the charcoal by squeezing it from a tissue or cloth, which I always keep handy for cleaning ink from the skin. It's a convenient way to control how much liquid is added. I know it's a little redneck, but let's be honest, this whole process is. I mean, you literally came here to watch some dude stab himself with a thorn covered in the remnants of a burned Johnny Appleseed tree in order to copy a body mod he saw on some ancient mummy who died from an arrow wound in some long-forgotten dispute. You tell me who the crazy one is. Something I've been getting asked since I started these shenanigans is something most people who get tattoos or who do tattooing have heard dozens if not thousands of times. Does it hurt? Ooh. Hold that thought. This is me pausing the stabbing procedure to remove junk from my last session. You see, this tattooing method leaves small bits of charcoal and sometimes broken needle tips in the skin. Then as you heal, they rise to the surface. I'm just helping this one to escape. That leftover crater closes up in a day or so. In fact, here's one from 2 days prior. Now something you might be questioning at this point is, why use a needle that might leave its tip stuck in the skin? Well, it doesn't happen that frequently. Most of the time it's just larger ink particles, which has to do with the ink making process and is a topic for another time. Thorn needles are naturally occurring, right? I don't have to carve them out, which, if you choose the right ones, makes them inherently stronger than some carved piece of wood or even other materials. Thorns do have their cons though. I'd say the biggest are inconsistent sharpness and tip diameters, so you have to be selective when collecting them or picking through your pile. Also, because they are wood, they're naturally more porous or less dense than bone, metal, or stone. So after dipping in ink and repeatedly poking holes, the tip will soften. This means they go dull relatively quickly, and yes, sometimes the tip is left in the skin. It's not that big of a deal. I discard them frequently as I work, and I grab a fresh one, which costs me nothing. I have attempted honing or resharpening them, but it's not worth it. It produces poorer results. It's never as sharp as it can grow naturally, and if it is, it tends to be weaker and break apart quicker. Also, honing them actually removes the waterproof layer on the exterior, resulting in them softening and deteriorating much faster. I'm looking forward to testing other materials in the future, but I want to learn more and put thorns through their paces here. Okay, so back to the pain question. I mean, it's rather subjective, right? What causes me to experience discomfort is not the same for you. Pain is perceived by the mind, and everyone's brain receives and interprets those signals differently. For me, I'm somewhat numb to physical pain, due to several injuries I've had as well as hereditary migraines. My threshold is high, and from poke to poke it can hurt less or more. Some areas have more nerves than others. I think, on the whole, the wrist and forearm are pretty low on that bar. So to answer the actual question, yeah, it does hurt. If you watch closely, you'll see me twinge once in a while as I stick myself. But to me, it's pretty minor pain. More of an irritation, like a mosquito bite, and sometimes closer to a sting. Once the holes start adding up, things swell and the area does feel a bit bruised. I'd say pain is probably worse the next day from the bruised feeling, if anything. Now to be clear, I've never experienced the modern tattooing process, so I don't know how it compares to that. For me, primitive tattooing isn't bad on the pain scale, but that's my scale. So I'm definitely not telling you that you'd feel the same. It's just something you have to experience for yourself, if you want to. And I'm not telling anyone it's a good idea to start sticking yourself to find out. I spent years becoming certain I wanted tattoos, and then months, if not over a year, deciding to go the primitive route. I do what most people would consider stupid things on a regular basis, but I think a lot about them first. And I believe that's really the key to a fulfilling life anyhow. Something I'm learning that I think I can't overemphasize to anyone who hasn't tried this before. Stretching of the skin is exceedingly important. It helps achieve consistency, and it means that you don't fight to get the needle in the skin so much. You'll probably hear me talk about and see me trying a variety of methods for stretching, depending upon where I'm tattooing and how easy that location is to work on. For instance, in my last segment, I talked about using my knees and hand to get 2 and 3 point stretches. And here you've seen me using just one knee, sometimes with my other hand as well, to get single or double point stretches. Even if you can only achieve a single point, pushing the needle in the opposite direction of the stretch is often enough to assist and act like a second point. Like I've said before, none of this is optimal, but if you work on yourself, you have to improvise sometimes. Heck, with a sharp needle, at the proper angle, you can get away with barely pinning your skin against one leg. But if you're having trouble getting the needle in, grab a sharper one and stretch the skin more. I'll share a few tips and bits of insight as I wrap up here. On day 1 and 2 after this process, you'll see mild to severe swelling. It's normal. And on day 2, you'll likely see a decent amount of scabbing. That's also normal. By day 3, swelling is likely dissipating, and as you might guess, this all depends on the size and method of the tattoo, so keep that in mind. Also, I leave my tattoos uncovered but keep them clean, washing them specifically and gently when I shower. Day 3 to 4 is likely to show fully formed scabs, and some areas may begin lifting. Do not pick them. Let them fall off naturally. Don't scratch them either. Instead, lightly press against the skin. Prolonged water exposure during bathing, swimming, or washing dishes can cause the scabs to lift more quickly. I've done it without undesirable effects, but I'd say avoid it if possible. At 6 to 7 days, scabs are likely giving way to new skin. The ink will look clouded, but this clears as things continue to heal. Okay, so if you have any questions about any of this or input from your own experience, I'd be glad to hear it, especially with primitive methods where there aren't tutorials present all over the place or working artists in all the shops around your city. Watching others will only take you so far. I know there are other people out there doing this, but it's just not prevalent, and I enjoy learning things by doing anyhow. I'm not a pro at this. I don't know much yet, but I'm going to find out, and hopefully that can help pave the way for others who may have interest in this old-timey take on such a rad art form. So, leave me a like if you enjoyed the video, and thanks so much for joining me. I'll catch you guys next time.